And then
okay, all right. Okay, Boker Tov, everybody. Today's daf is Pei Vav 86. We pick up in the Mishnah on Pei Hayam Bet. Good Moed. And we are moving on to Chenek. So we did somebody who smites mother and father, and now we get on to the next one. Hagonev Nefesh Yisrael. And so somebody who kidnaps. Now, kidnapping, when we hear of kidnapping, we primarily think about ransom, exactly, thank you. But in the Psukim, kidnapping was, basically about stealing somebody as a slave. I mean, if you think about it, the whole slave trade in America, right, mostly happened as a result of wars in Africa. Not only wars, because like Africans, were involved in the slave trade as well at the supply side, not only at being the slaves, but as supplying the slaves and as actually raiding other tribes and capturing people and then selling them, So sometimes it would be a byproduct of war. Sometimes it would be specifically, let's capture this person. I mean, think about the Yosef story, right? What did the brothers do, right? They captured him. I mean, that's the whole Eila Ezkara that we say, and then sold him off as a slave. So that's the classic example, right, in the Torah, which, by the way, just in Gittin, there's a whole discussion about one of the things that they did for Tikkun Olam was that they said you could not pay exorbitant amounts to redeem a captive, because then it would just, it's sort of like negotiating with terrorists. It would just sort of encourage, people to go ahead and to seize captives again. And the limit was set at, you can't pay Yoser Michdei D'Mehem, more than their standard value. What's the standard value? Like we think about today's phenomenon of somebody kidnaps, God forbid, a child, right, and asks the parents for millions of dollars. What's Kedei D'Mehem? So the Kedei D'Mehem means the slave market, right? So if somebody's taken captive and they want to sell them back to you at the normal slave market price, that would be allowed. But if they're acting an exorbitant amount, that's going to feed into this other phenomenon, this ransom phenomenon. And at least according to that Mishnah, you're not supposed to do it over there in Gittin. Of course, then Tosfos raises the question. I mean, let's say it's a family member and other types of issues. I don't want to go into it, but I just want to lay the scene that the classic example of stealing a person is basically to sell them as a slave. So anyway, so here it says, so the pasuk says, "Ki matzei ish konev nefesh me'achav b'nei Yisrael v'yisamer bo mecharo u'mei taganav hahu." If somebody is found stealing a fellow Jew and hitamer bo is interpreted by the Gemara as makes use of him, and then sells him, then that's ganav will be put to death. So stam mita is chenek, and that has three definitions there: stealing, selling, and this other thing of hitamer bo, which is a criteria, but it's sort of seen as a sort of less of a dominant part of the act. The act is basically stealing and selling, with this condition that he has to actually have been used as a slave by the person who stole him. So let's take a look at the Mishnah. We have to, first of all, the Ganav has to take him. Israel has to take him into his domain, under his control. Now that normal Geneva, right, is that you have to do some act of kinyan, taking into your control. The question here is, on the one hand, this is a chiddush because, you can't do a kinyan on a person, on a free person. So on the one hand, that we do set up the similar formal requirements that you have to do some type of a masa kinyan. But it doesn't just say a masa kinyan. If I'm going and I'm stealing Michael's sheep, and I steal into his yard and I lift up his sheep, I'm a ganav even though I haven't taken it off the ground, because that's a masa kinyan that shows control. Here the phrase is ad yachnisenu lirishuto, and some of the Rishonim actually say that maybe it's not enough to lift the person up. Maybe specifically it's because it says gonev nefesh mi b'nei Yisrael. Somehow there's of taking somebody. It's not just an act of kinyan. An act of kinyan, as we said, is not exactly, doesn't actually fit. You don't do kinyanim on people that aren't already slaves. Okay, so anyway, it might specifically require taking him out of his property and bringing him into your property.
Right. So if I do it all in Rishut Rabbi, I'm not chayav.
Right.
So, I mean, exactly. I take you from your house,
right?
Sell you in Rishut Rabbi. I might even put you anywhere.
Right. Correct. It might actually require me, because it's also an interesting question. Like if I go ahead and I take somebody and I lift him up, and then I see it in the middle of the street, and then I see you and I say, you want to buy this little slave boy, you pay me for him or whatever, right? So obviously I've done a horrific thing. I mean, nobody's questioning that. But how much did I steal him, or how much did I just have this little boy following me, right? And and you're the one then that took him, and you took him away to your, to your plantation or wherever you took him. So the idea is, again, how do you define what it means to steal a person? So the requirement is that actually have to bring it into your domain. And again, as I said, according to some Rishonim, a Masakinian lifting up might not be enough. So it sounds like they're debating whether this idea of using him is an actual requirement. Stealing and selling is dominates in the pasuk. How do you understand this requirement of Vayit Amerbo? So Rabbi Yehuda says, yes, you have to use him. Shenemar Vayit Amerbo, and he makes use of him. Umecharo. Okay, Hagon, so we'll see what the Chachamim hold. Hagoniv es beno. Now let's say somebody steals his own son and sells his own son off as a slave, right? Which is a little interesting because the person can. Let's say, yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, you're chayiv whether you steal an adult or a minor. But a father can actually sell his daughter as a slave if she's a minor, but not his son. So let's say he goes ahead and does it. Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka mechayiv. You're chayiv. Chachamim potrim and Chachamim exempt, and we'll see why. But basically, because it's like not taking something. It's well, we'll see in the bar. Okay, ganav mishachetzev v'chetzev min charin. Rabbi Yehuda mechayiv. Chachamim potrim. You sell somebody, you know, that movie, right? 12 Years a Slave, right? Which is the person who was sold as a free man who was sold as a slave because he was black and he couldn't claim to be a slave. So if you steal somebody's slave and sell it, you're not chayiv because, you know, that person, you haven't enslaved that person. You've taken them away from their original master and sold them to another master, right? But you haven't enslaved this person, okay? But if you actually take somebody, it has to be a free man. What if it's somebody who's half free, half slave? Right, owned by partners, one partner freedom or whatever. How much are you chayiv? You've now fully enslaved them, but they weren't fully free to begin with. Okay, so here the Mishnah says that that's a debate. Rabbi Yehuda says you're chayiv, and Chachamim say you're exempt. So let's take a look at the Gemara.
What happens to the person who buys it? Is he also liable for anything?
The person who buys it, right? So that the person who buys it is not liable to death penalty. Now we're presuming that the person who buys it is unwitting. Thinks that you're the actual owner, right? If the interesting question that if the person who buys it knows that you stole this person, and then they also, I imagine that if that was true, it's a very interesting question. I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I would just intuitively say that that person would also be over on having stolen somebody, because if I took this little kid that you had stolen, I knew he was stolen, I was taking him, I was also stealing him. Taking a free person and enslaving him and making him a slave. Okay, but I would not be chayiv for having sold him. I participated. I was misageya, you are avera. I would have transgressed the prohibition of stealing. We're going to see in the Gemara that there's two prohibitions: don't steal, and then don't sell the slave you stole. Only if you transgress both, you get the death penalty. But transgressing either one is still a prohibition, right? So okay. So now the Gemara says like this: V'tana kama lo ba yimur. How could it be that the Tana Kama going to this debate of stealing and Rabbi Yehuda said, no, you have to use it. How could the Tana Kama not require that? It's explicit in the pasuk. So I'm Rabbi Yacha Brei Derava, imur pachas mishrei pruta ika beinayu. No. The Tana Kama says it doesn't have to be a prutas worth of use. You know, you can just rest your arm on him, something that isn't even worth a penny. There has to be some degree of use. And Rabbi Yehuda says it has to be a prutas worth. And the Rambam paskins like the Tana Kama. Now, the question is, what is the logic that you have to use him, right? If the problem is I took a free person, I stole them away, I sold them off, right? They're never going to get back to their parents and so on, right? Or I'm imagining it's a kid. I mean, you could steal an adult as well. Like I said, like that whole movie, 12 Years a Slave. But anyway, what's the idea of having to use him? Why is that relevant? I mean, it's not like, it might be like you might want to say that the purchaser has to use him, has to enslave him, but why me? But my feeling about this would be that the idea is that that's not so much the transgression, but it gives context and meaning to what I did, right? Like, what does it mean that I turned a free person into a slave, right? If I just picked up this kid, right? This kid I found in the street and I walked him to my house and then I sold him off to somewhere, did I turn him into a slave? I sold him to somebody else who was going to enslave him, right? So I was involved in the slave trade, right? But if I actually make use of him, right, and I am part of the one who has transformed him and enslaved him. So that's what I see the significance is of this requirement of not only stealing and selling, but actually making use of the person, because that makes the God of also the person who's transforming him into a slave, who's defining him as a slave, who's enslaving him. Okay, that's my understanding of the significance of this imur. Okay, so and that's why even less than a shrei pruta. Because it doesn't really matter that you stole something of monetary value from this person. What matters is that you created that context of treating him as a slave. right, of making him a slave. Okay, so now by Rabbi Yirmiyah, and Rabbi Yirmiyah asked, Ganvo umachro yashan, yashay, mahu. If somebody was stolen and sold while he was still asleep, he was unaware of what was happening. Okay, what's the story? Machar isha lu'ubara mahu. If a woman is sold for her fetus, okay, a man steals a woman who's pregnant, sells her to somebody else, and says, "I am selling you the fetus, but I retain ownership over the woman." Okay, so is that stealing and selling? Okay, so because
he stole someone else,
right? What was sold, if the fetus doesn't yet have an independent identity, right? And it's gonev nefesh me'achavim Israel, like we sort of said before. What has to be sold is a born person. Okay, it doesn't have to be an adult. What has to be stolen and sold has to be a born person. So you're not chai for stealing the fetus. You're chai for stealing the woman. But then you didn't sell the woman. You only sold her for the purpose of the fetus. Okay, so what would be that story? To me, the first one should be chayiv, and the second one should be pater, not morally, but just in terms of the formal definition of the pasuk. Right? It's hard to understand why if the guy's asleep, that should mean that you're chayiv, that you would be pater. So yesh derech imur bekach or ein derech imur bekach. It's a very funny way of framing the question. Is this considered a normal way to make use of something or not?
How do you use a sleeping person?
Well, you use a sleeping person by lying on them or reclining on them. But why? But why is that the issue? Right? The question is about the selling, right? Not about like the Rambam says, if you stole somebody asleep and you leaned on them and then you sold them when they were awake, you'd be chayiv. So the imur criteria is only a minor middle point in the middle. And the person could be asleep, or if you steal a pregnant woman and you make use of her, you have her, I don't know, mix you a drink or something like that, and then you sell her l'ubara. So the imur requirement was satisfied. So the real question is it considered a legitimate sale? Right? Why is it being framed as a type? Is there this imur or not imur? Is very unclear to me. Okay, let's read what the Gemara says.
Why do we care if the person is asleep or not?
Well, I know the Gemara never even spells out what the question is about being asleep. Let's read it. Okay, is that the way of doing imur or not? The typically delek imur klal. So the Gemara says, well, how are you using this person anyway? The sleeping person is presumably what it's asking. Pregnant woman is obvious. So it says, look, tricha. No, I can give you a way in which you're using them. Yashein de zaga alei. If somebody is sleeping, you lie on them. You make use of them that way. Alei isha, a pregnant woman, do ukma ba'ape zika. You have her stand to protect you from the wind. Now that's silly. Why doesn't it just say, like I said, you have her, I don't know, tie your shoes, pour you a drink. So it seems like what we want is the fetus to be used. So because she's pregnant, she's a greater blockage of the wind. So therefore, that's how you're using her, the person who's asleep, and you're using the woman. But the funny thing is, again, if you then went ahead and just sold the woman outright after using her that way, or sold the sleeping person became awake and you sold him, you would be chayav. So it's not just that point of use; it's that then somehow they were sold in this way also that highlighted the fact, so it's really about the sale, not about the use. I don't really fully understand this. 1 minute. So the Gemara says take, we don't know. So like I said, I don't really understand it, but it seems to me what it's getting at is the point that, as I said before, it's not just like, oh, we have a checkbox. Did you use them? Check. Like the point of using them is to create the context that this person is now being enslaved, and I'm making this person a slave. Okay? So even if the use of when somebody's asleep could sort of be seen as a legitimate use, okay? But if the person isn't aware that they're being enslaved, right? So they're completely oblivious. How much have I enslaved the person? Meaning, I've used them, but like as soon as the person wakes up, they'll protest, they'll run away. Who knows how?
So let's say you shackled him and he didn't wake up or something like that. You know what I mean?
Okay, but I'm not
just
saying they could escape. But the fact is that somehow it's, you think that when you say somebody's enslaved, it's hard to imagine a case that you could describe somebody as being enslaved if they're oblivious to the fact. Okay, that the fact is somehow that has been imposed on the person and they're aware of it is part of, I think, how we imagine what it means to sort of be enslaving someone. So anyway, so that's how I understand it. Meaning the problem isn't you didn't do a sale. Of course you did a sale. You bought somebody and picked it up. But how much is the sale defined by the imur? How much is it not just that I've used them, but then that creates a context where I've sold the person as a slave. So if I lay on him, I guess, when he was asleep, and then he woke up and I sold him and he was aware that he was being sold, then you combine the pieces. I used him, right, and then I sold him, then he was aware he was being sold, and I had used him. So that creates a context of selling him as a slave. But if the whole thing is oblivious, maybe those pieces don't combine, right? And the same with like the pregnant woman, right? If I, used her, fine, I used her, but like how much did I am I selling? I don't know. I'd have to figure out the pieces. But anyway, but it's somehow like, how much is if it is selling the fetus and not selling her, but selling her for the fetus, sort of like enslaving her. And that's sort of, I think, part of the question. The question isn't like, is it umecharo? Is it a sale? Yes, it's a sale. But the derech imor is it a sale of enslavement? And that's why it's framed as derech imor bekach, because the imor is what creates the context of enslavement. That's how I'm understanding it. Yes.
Maybe the Gemara will get to it, but I was going to highlight the question I had on the psukim, because there are two. There's the Mishpatim one, which is that v'gonev ish mecharov nitzav b'yado mot yumat.
Right.
It doesn't mention it anymore.
Right.
And the other one does. So, in Dvarim. So the question is,
right.
Dvarim is sort of expanding with
yes.
separate things, because Mishpatim can say, if he's still in my possession, that's worse somehow.
Right.
So I don't even need imur.
Right.
But if he's not in my possession,
right.
then
So you could have said that was the debate of the Tanna Kama and Rabbi Yehuda, because one person doesn't mention imur. The Gemara is choosing to assume that, and then maybe say, you understand, I know, Dibur Torah, whatever, that just like in a normal case, but it wasn't a technical legal requirement. But the Gemara is not reading it that way. The Gemara understands you can't ignore that pasuk, and it's choosing to read that even the Tanna Kama agrees to that criteria. But that's what I'm saying. It seems to me that the purpose of that is to create the context, and that explains why it's in Dvarim and not in Shemos, that it's a technical point that's necessary to create the context that you are enslaving. You've captured the person as a slave, and you're selling them as a slave, and it's that context is created through that imur, which is how this Gemara right now that we read understands why the imur can affect the nature of the sale.
So the imur doesn't. So you're saying it's technical because the person may not even be realized. Maybe the whatever you want to call it, slave, the person who can may not even be realizing that he's like being.
Well, that's the case. That's the case of the about a slave, right? Exactly.
So it's not like, oh my God, he realizes this is terrible, and
right. But he does. But then he realizes it when he's awake, which is why the Gemara has a question if he's asleep the whole time. Okay, so now the Gemara says like this: Tana Rabbanan. Anyway, like I said, it's not totally spelled out how it's connecting the dots, but it seems clear that the idea of imur is to create this context of enslavement. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. Kimat say ish gonev nev mechav. Ainli eli ish shaganav shaganav. Okay, we've had the similar thing before. If a man, how do you know it refers to a woman? Isha minayin. Now, by the way, Tosfos has pointed out, I should mention earlier, it's a funny thing, because often the Gemara says that, kol Torah kula b'lashon zachar nemar, right? Which is like the entire Torah always sort of, is in the male pronoun, like it's if a man does this, a man does that, and so on, right? And nevertheless, the Gemara says like, huksha isha leisha, isha leisha kol onshim Torah. We assume, right, unless it's something specifically male, like talking about, an act of intercourse with a woman or whatever, we assume that every prohibition applies equally to a man and a woman. Okay, so Tosfos says, why do we sometimes need a special way to include women, right? If, we should just by default assume that even if it's written in the male, it includes women. All right, so Tosfos raised that question, in various places. He gives different types of answers, but I just did sort of want to put it out there. Somebody actually told me that there was a woman lawyer a couple of years back in Israel, because who was also sort of annoyed by the fact that all of Israeli legislation was in the masculine, right? If he, if whatever. And anyway, found somewhere that there was some law somewhere that said that any legislation that's written in either gender should be assumed to apply to the other gender unless stated explicitly otherwise. So then she started working to pass, as much legislation as possible on the female gender, right? But I should say that somebody recently gave me that feedback because we're dealing with all these people that are chayav misa, right? Somebody who hits a mother or father, somebody who curses a mother or father, somebody who worships a zara, and I tend to use the male gender. If he, like often I'm good to use ballads, but it was like, it's like that whole question about, if equal treatment for women, they could be doing the Averas as well as the men. I should have just assumed that the men are doing the Averas, right? So, okay, so I plead guilty on all of that. Anyway, okay.
That's not how affirmative action.
What?
That's not how affirmative action You have to first do all the good
The
stuff.
good stuff. Well, that's the whole question about the draft, right? About the whole affirmative action. And what about? Well, so that means that women should be drafted as well. So okay, right? We can have that discussion. But I don't have an opinion on that.
But
We
I
can have
It would be a lot less war problems.
Oh, that's it. Only if you make them into the generals, not if you make them into the foot soldiers.
I think
Yes.
I think you do interchange the woman, female and male, he and her in some of your Torah.
Oh yeah. No, in
Right.
general, I'm good about it, but I've been like reluctant to do it with all of these capital crimes here. Okay. Anyway, ish shaganav. Ish, how do you know if a woman is also the one who steals, kidnaps, or whatever? Talmud Lomar v'gonev ish. Okay, and one who steals, and it doesn't mention if a man steals. Ish shaganav bein ish uvein ish. Okay, right. This is the problem that we had before, right? It says it's with mamish. It's almost the exact same like we have had by like Makalo and other types of things. It says one pasuk says the gonev ish. So if anybody steals, but only if a man is the one being stolen. And the one says ish. What it says kimatzei ish gonev nefesh. Okay. So here we have if anybody steals, a man. If a man steals, anyone. But how do you know if anyone steals anyone? If a woman steals a woman, or a woman steals a baby, or something like that, okay? Right? Because the nefesh here would mean even a female and even a baby, right? And the gonev here means even a female, not a baby, because you have to be an adult, okay? But how do you know if a woman steals a woman, or a woman steals a baby, or whatever? How would you know to include that? Okay? And a woman stealing a woman. Okay, that's the ganav, whatever the circumstances is of the ganav.
So you know this is a who,
right?
Not a
I understand. Tanita, we done another brayse. Because it says nefesh, whether you're stealing a man or a woman. And whether the person stolen is you might say, what is me'achav, from the brethren? So who might that be excluding? So it does not exclude a convert, that's included in echav, and it does not include a freed slave, who's like a convert, who's included in echav, now it's part of the brethren, and a minor, also, whether it being the stolen person. All of those is chayav. Now, ganva, but of course, somebody who's currently a slave would not be included. Now, that could be partly because, is that because somebody who's currently a slave is excluded from echav? Or is that because somebody who's a slave, it's part of the whole sin is enslaving a free person? Okay, so we'll see in the Gemara how we know to exclude a slave. Now, ganva v'lo machra v'adayin yeshno b'yishuso, if it was stolen and he was not sold, or sold and he still is in his domain. Now, who's the his domain? It sounds like I went ahead and I stole a kid and he's still in my yard and I sold him to Michael and Michael didn't take him out of my yard. And you can imagine that, right? What does it mean to steal, to sell, right? Because it's not a legally binding sale. So might you say that the requirement of sale means that Michael has now taken him out of my yard and taken him off to his plantation, right? And then you understand, like now he's not going to get back to his parents or whatever the case might be. But basically, Rashi reads that Dain Hebrew Shuso, and the Rambam reads it as well. And he's still in the kid's original rishus.
Yeah,
like I never really took him home. Okay, I picked him up. I transacted a sale with Michael. I found him in the middle of the street. Okay, but I never took him home, which is going back to the point of our Mishnah, that I'm not chayiv until I bring him into my control. Well, we'll get to it. Okay, patur. In all those cases, you're exempt. All right, but again, I do wonder if there are Rishonim who read it the other way, that even if he is in the Gana's Rishus, but has not yet gone into the purchaser's Rishus, is that a basis of exemption? Okay. Anyway, machrol aviv lechad min hakrovim, you sold him back to the family. Okay, and now the family is going to enslave him. Chayav, you're chayav. We're going to unpack all of this. Okay, hagoni v'savadim patur, but if you steal a slave, you're exempt. Okay, it's the top of Pei Vav Amud Aleph. Tani Tana coming to Rav Sheshes. So the Tana taught in front of Rav Sheshes. Amalei ani shone Rabbi Shimon Omer me'achav ad sheyotzin mirashut echav. That amrit chayav patur. So he taught this brayta that we just taught. that said that if you sell to the father, you're chayav. And he said, how could you say that? I have a tradition that Rabbi Shimon says that it says, Gonev nevet me echav, that you have to take him away from the family. So if you sold him back to the family, that's not taking him me echav. You're not taking him away from the family. So I would say he's exempt. How can you say he's chayav?
He said Rabbi Shimon.
Okay, so we're going to see that in a minute. So you should change your girsa. No, if you sold him back to the family, you're patur. So the Gemara says, my kosher, why is that a problem? That's Rabbi Shimon's position, that if you sell back to the family, you're patur. Maybe he was telling you the position of the town of a different rabbi. So the Gemara says, no, lo sakadaita. It doesn't make sense that Breita was a different position than Rabbi Shimon. Why? The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Stam Asnisim Rabbi Meir, the anonymous mission is Rabbi Meir, Stam Tosefta Rabbi Nechemia, an anonymous Tosefta is Rabbi Nechemia, Stam Sifra Rabbi Yehuda, the anonymous Sifra, which is the Tanaitic commentary on Vayikra, is Rabbi Yehuda, Stam Sifrei, which is the rabbinic Tanaitic commentary on Bamidbar and Dvarim, is Rabbi Shimon. And this is a Sifrei because this was a explication of the verse in Dvarim. Okay, they're all from the school of Rabbi Akiva because these are all students of Rabbi Akiva as opposed to the Rabbi Shmuel Tanaitic sort of midrashay halacha. So since you were teaching me a sifrei, which is Rabbi Shimon, I believe that there could be another opinion that says chayav, but I believe that a sifrei would say patur. That's my understanding of Rabbi Shimon's position. Okay, hagonev b'no. Now back to our case of the Mishnah. Somebody who steals his own son, which is similar to stealing somebody and selling it back to a parent. Here it is somebody who steals his own son. Okay, so so that's the debate. The rabbis say you're patur, and Rabbi Yochanan says you're chay. I'm sorry, Rabbi Shmuel, B'noshe Rabbi Yochanan says you're chay, and the rabbis say you're patur. My time, Rabbanan. What's the reason of the Rabbanan? Rabbi Damakra, the verse says, "Ki matzei," if a person is found, prat l'matzui, to exclude a case. So it's not just you discover a person doing this, but it's also read as the person finds somebody to steal, as opposed to somebody who's always available.
Ish is the person stealing, not the person's being stolen.
I understand. That's why I just said that the Gemara is reading this not like pshat. Okay, kimatze is not just that the stealer is discovered, but the one being stolen is discovered, as opposed to if the one being stolen is already present. By the way, the most common application of this type of a drasha is by the mitzvah shiluach hakan. That if somebody is, or Cain, I should say. So if somebody basically is raising chickens, right, and goes ahead and let's say takes a chicken to slaughter it, and do they have to do the mitzvah or takes the eggs? Why don't they have to send away the chicken? They're raising eggs, right? So it says right. It says ki yimatzei, right? If it's found, what's the pasuk? Kanti por levanecha baderech, etc. So ki yimatzei prat l'matzui. If you're raising them, it doesn't apply. Okay. Anyway, so here it's kimatzei that the ganav is discovered, but we're reading it that the nignav is discovered.
So would this mean that it's a minor child who's more likely to be found by his father as opposed to an adult child that is his own household?
Interesting. That's an interesting question.
Or would you say that since they're children, they may be coming home anyway?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. What the parameters of that are? Okay, my time. I'm Rabbi Damakra kimatzei prat l'matzui. Amalei Rav Papa. Okay, if a man is discovered sleeping with a married woman, so if they're living in close quarters with one couple with another couple, so kigon shall be ploni, like those guys over there, that household, the shchichin gabayu, that that good maybe friends. that they have a lot, right? That the married couples are like living in close proximity, maybe under the same roof. So hachanami tiri. Would you say they're exempt? So Anna mivinimtza biyado ka'amina. So it's so this also gets the problem that the kimatzei is going on the perpetrator. So I'm not dealing with that. You're right. Then you could ask the same question by this case of adultery. I'm talking about kimatzei kunev neshmei chamineso visamer bo mecharo.
That's the one in.
This is the pasuk of nimtza yado, right?
Yes.
So obviously the problem of nimtza yado is that he's not discovered in the hand of the ganav. If he was sold off, he's discovered in the hand of the buyer. So v'nimtza biyado, right, means somehow we read it like, okay, the Adam saw the ganav in the act of the perpetration of the crime. Okay, but here v'nimtza biyado is also meant like that all of a sudden the person became the nignav became now found in the ganav's hands. He wasn't normally under the control of the ganav. Which is like a good shot in the pasuk. The pasuk is like, what is this guy doing in your house? He shouldn't be here, right? He was discovered in the house and he didn't belong in the house. But if he belonged in the house, then he would be, then the guy would be exempt.
So we're saying is is not saying
the nignav is nimtza biyado of the ganav. Now, which means that like he was now discovered in this guy's house and he shouldn't have been in this guy's house, right?
I mean, he doesn't, that's not the timing of the sale, right? I mean, you could have sold him and he's no longer in the house.
That's what I said, right? That's the funny part of the pasuk, is that the pasuk sounds like you have to catch him while he's still in the Ganav's house. But like, what it really means is that the Edom have to see the trend. In a way, that's true, because the Edoms have to witness the transaction. So they are seeing that the guy is still in the house, as it were. Okay? Or whatever. Although it's an interesting question, right? Do the Edom have to see, like, let's say Edom see Reuven steal this kid, and then a week later they say Reuven engage in a transaction with Shimon to sell the kid, but they don't know where the kid is right now. You know, like, how do you satisfy that? But anyway, here it's being read that it implies that the kid did it. I'm always giving an example of a kid because it's an easier scenario to imagine, but obviously it would apply to adults as well. But anyway, that the nignav did not belong in the household of the person where he was being taken and sold from.
So for instance,
okay, let's just read it. Hold on. Okay, so the word's going to actually get that. You're very good. You're just fitting tomorrow. Okay, so it says Kamina. I'm a Rava. So those people that teach school kids and that teach more like the so Mikvi Dardiki is teaching Torah, like written Torah, to the kids, and Masner is teaching like Mishnah to the older kids. So what is it, like lower school and high school teachers? If they kidnap one of their charges, so then they're exempt, and which is ironic because you would think that those are the people you need more of the laws to. Are the strangers whom they're under the control of strangers, right? And they're entrusted, and these people have these positions of trust. Is dafka where you would think you would need to have more of the safeguards.
So it's not that the nignav is in the house of the ganav often. It's just that the ganav is
readily available, right? Which also, by the way, raises an interesting question about brothers, right? You think about Yosef and the brothers, right? Like we said, Ezra, right? In Sabiyado, whatever, Gonev Moshimat. Like, how come if a brother steals another brother, they should be pater, right? It's Nimtza Biyado, right? Is it not just that you're around them, but they're under your control? Maybe it has to be, right? That the V'nimtza, so maybe Dafka would not apply to like brothers, at the same house.
Otherwise, they would have been exempt.
Right, that's my point. So maybe it also has to be that they're under the control. Okay, anyway, so let's take a look. So it says like this. Now, stealing somebody who's half slave, what's that about? What's that debate about? So, Tanan Hassel, we got over there. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ein Lavadim Boshes. So we're going to see why this is relevant, because here Rabbi Yehuda says that if you steal somebody who's a half slave, you're chayiv. Okay, which seems to be that he's more sort of recognizing, if you would, the humanity or the free nature of a half slave. So, but don't go and thinking that Rabbi Yehuda is this big protector of slaves, because here it's going to seem like this other debate, it's going to be the reverse. Okay, so Ein Lavadim Boshes said if you embarrass a slave, you have to pay damages. So he said no, there's no damage payments to a slave. Now, read it one way, it means like he doesn't believe that slaves could be embarrassed. They're already in this degraded type of a state. They don't become embarrassed, but that's not how we read it. We read it as they're not entitled to to such a payment. Why not? So let's take a look. My time to review. What's the reason? The verse says, if two brothers fight, or a man and his brother, not literally brothers. Anyway, and then it says, it speaks about a woman, one of the wives, tries to defend her husband and grabs hold of the privates of the other person. It says you cut off her hand. So we interpret that not to be literal, cut off her hand. We interpret it to mean a payment for embarrassment. Okay, so this is the context where we learn there's a payment for boshes, and it starts by brothers fight. Again, brothers meant more figuratively than literally, but anyway. So so the payments of boshet applies only to somebody who's considered to have a brotherhood. Slaves don't have brotherhood. Now, what does that mean? So Tosot says what it basically means is that if a slave gives, like, it doesn't just mean, like they're not halachically related to their brothers. Because if Tosfos said if that were true, it would also apply to a convert. Somebody converts, they're not related to their biological brothers from the past. But what it means is, no, somebody who converts, their kids are all considered to be, brothers and sisters, right? Once they've converted, their children are all part of the same family. Whereas a slave, as a slave, even his children are not considered to be part of his family. Okay, so this whole family structure doesn't apply legally by slaves. Obviously, that also reflects a reality that families were broken up, right? So the whole law didn't recognize the family structure by slaves. Okay, so so therefore, a slave is excluded. There's no boshes for Abanan, and the rabbis say echav hu b'mitzvot. No, or achiv hu b'mitzvot. No. He still is your brother in the world of mitzvot, not from a sort of biological family structure, but because the slave is obligated in mitzvot, he's still he's one of us, right? He's within the sort of Jewish faith and the Jewish community. Okay, so that's the debate of whether slaves have boshet. Now, what's the debate here where they seem to flip their positions? That a half-slave, Rabbi Yehuda says, you're chayiv, and the chachamim say you're pater. So, v'hacha heichi darsh Rabbi Yehuda. How does Rabbi Yehuda interpret the psukim here? Savar me'echav. It says, kima te'ish gonev nefesh me'echav mi b'nei Yisrael. Stealing one of the brothers from the children of Israel. Okay, me'echav lafuke avadim. So that would exclude slaves, because we know Rabbi Yehuda excludes slaves from the word brother. B'nei Yisrael, then it says children of Israel. Limute, so that's now even being more exclusionary. Limute, that would exclude Misha Chetziv Eved v'Chetziv Ben Charon, even a half slave you're exempt from. But then there's another word to exclude. Mi B'nei Yisrael, the mem means even a subset of that. Okay, so Mi B'nei Yisrael. So Limute, so that's also excluded. Misha Chetziv Eved v'Chetziv Ben Charon, a half slave. But we already excluded that. So this is the classic, like bizarre, reverse logic of the Gemara. Have a miyut achar miyut. This is the principle of methinks she doth protest too much. Okay, it's excluding after something's already been excluded. The ein miyut achar miyut the rabbos. So if you're so insistent that it's excluded, it really is included. Okay, so because he starts by excluding slaves more, he winds up having excluded them too much, and therefore winds up including somebody who's a half slave into this prohibition. That's Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbanan, and the rabbis, because they start with less exclusion, they wind up with more. Okay, they don't think Echav excludes slaves because he is achiv b'mitzvot. So daha achiv b'mitzvot. So B'nai Yisrael, only the word B'nai Yisrael begins to exclude slaves. B'nai Yisrael, mi B'nai Yisrael. So now we have two exclusions. B'nai Yisrael, right, and which would exclude slaves, and mi B'nai Yisrael, the extra mem. So Chad Limutei Eved, one excludes a full slave, and the other to exclude a half slave. So that's why they wound up, to some degree, reversing their positions of how excluded a slave is by Boshes, how excluded a half slave is here by the case of kidnapping. Okay, now we move on. Where's the prohibition of kidnapping? So Rabbi Yoshaya Omer, Milo Tignov, from the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not steal or burgle. Rabbi Yochanan Omer, Milo yimacharu mim keres oved. They shall not be sold. Right. This is talking about how you treat when you're, when a fellow Jew sells himself as a slave, how you have to treat him. And it says, they're my slaves. They shall not be sold like a slave is sold. Okay, so that means, according to this, it's not just like a declaration that's saying, don't sell a free Jew as a slave. All right, so low pligian, they're really not debating. There's two prohibitions. There's a prohibition of stealing and a prohibition of selling. The person only gets misa if they do both, but each act is independently prohibited. Okay, so one wonders actually, let's say somebody never sold somebody, right? Let's say stole somebody. Let's say I go to Jenna and I say, Jenna, you see that kid walking down over there? He's my slave. I'll sell him to you, and we transact. And I never even touched the kid. Okay, and then Jenna sends her troops or her men or whatever. They pick up the kid and they take it off to Jenna's plantation. Okay, so have I done? So Jenna was unwitting. All right, I didn't steal him. Have I done the transgression of lo yimachru mim keres oved? Right? Is it possible to do that transgression with? I'm not going to get misa because I haven't stolen him. You need to do both to get misa, but is it possible to do the second transgression without having done the first? Like, I don't know. Okay, anyway, moving on.
Isn't it just a false sale?
The whole thing is a false sale. Even if I stole him, it's a false sale. He's a free person. right? The whole thing is it just looks like a sale, but it's not, right? Let's say I have your kid over to my house for a, to be raking the lawn. And then I go to Jen and I say, you see that kid raking the lawn? He's my slave. I'll sell him to you. I didn't steal him, right? But even if I did steal him, I'm not selling him. He's not really mine. He's not a slave. All right. So, okay. So, Tana Rabbanan, Lo Tignov, B'Gonev Nefashos U'Kas Medaber. Now we're getting back to the idea that the 10 Commandments, Lo Tignov, is talking about kidnapping. So most people, of course, have no idea that this is how the rabbis read it. If you read Rashi on the Psukim, you know that Rashi quotes this, right? But anyway, he says that's kidnapping. So we go lo tignov, we go even fashos kavdaber. Atom we go in fashos, so ain't no el we go in mammon. Maybe it's talking about stealing property. Amartet save v'lamad mishloshas remidos shatorni dreshes behen. Go and learn from the 13 principles that the Torah is derived from, right? That we say to Rabbi Shmuel at the end of the Korbanos. What's one of them? Davar lamed minyan. Learning something from context. That's a simple principle. Let's just figure out what it means from context. The whole context there, right, is about lo tirtzach, lo tinaf, lo tignov. So the whole context is about capital crimes. So since it's about capital crimes, we'll assume this is also capital crimes. Of course, afterwards it gets into non-capital crimes, right? Lo tanab re'acha et shaker, right? Lo sachmod beis re'acha. So good, before it was capital, but afterwards it's not capital crimes. But somehow we're saying that because preceding it was capital crimes, this has to be a type of a stealing that's a capital crime, and therefore it has to be this kidnapping. Okay? So Avkam bin Nefashas, Tanya, we've done another way. So Lo Tignovu, this is in Vayikra, you shall not steal in the plural. Begonev Mamon U'Kas Medaber, that's talking about stealing property. Atomer Begonev Mamon U'Eino Begonev Nefashas, maybe that's about stealing people. Amarta Tzeilin, Shloshas Remidos, Shatorni Dreshes Ben. No, learn from the 13 principles. Davar Lamed Minyano, one of them is context. B'Merkos Medaber B'Mamon. That pasuk is what is it? Lo sechakaru v'lo sechachashu lo tignovu v'lo techachashu v'lo sechakaru ish b'mito. Don't steal, don't lie, don't deny that you own something. So the whole context there is about stealing and monetary issues, not about not about capital crimes. Okay, b'mamon, afkan b'mamon, fine. So that's the end of the basis for it. Now we get to a different question, which is combining, since there are these two principal points, stealing and selling, how does it work in terms of the testifying that the person has done both? So I do want to say the next Gemara is a little bizarre because it focuses on whether people are falsely testifying, under what circumstances can they become Eidim Zomimim. But really the prior question is, if they're telling the truth, when can they combine? When is it considered to be that each one is giving a sufficient testimony on their own to combine to make the person liable for having done this sin? But for whatever reason, we're focusing on if they're lying, can they become Eidim Zomimim? But it really parallels the question of when can two testimonies combine to make somebody liable for this capital crime? Okay, so let's take a look. Itmar, it was said, Eidim Gneva v'Eidim Mechira. So witnesses say that Reuven stole this person, and then other witnesses say that he sold him. Benefesh, Shehuzmu, and they were proven Eidim Zomimim. So Chizki Omer ein Eragim, you can't kill them, because Rabbi Yochanan Omer ein Eragim, you can kill them. So why can't you kill them? They were trying to get the guy killed. So Chizki Omer Rabbi Akiva, Damer Dover v'lo Chatzi Davar. It has to be a full thing, not a half thing. Rabbi Yochanan Omer Karbona Damer Davar v'afilu Chatzi Davar, even a half thing. So what does that mean? Okay, so here they are. Here's this guy. They are saying, okay, so these witnesses say, we saw him steal the kid, okay? I guess they'll have him holding up a little kid that he stole, okay? And then these witnesses say, I don't know why I'm going up to be, anyway, but that we saw him sell the kid, all right? He's handing over the kid to this other person. Okay, like my pictograms? Okay, so.
That was fun.
Oh, good point. Okay, good point. Okay, fine. All right, so before you get to Eidim Zomim, like I said, it's strange the Gemara starts with Eidim Zomim. do the same witnesses have to see both? Because there's a principle, at least if you make that rational. You have to testify to something that in itself is a whole thing. So the point is, well, if they just saw that he stole, or they just saw that he sold, first of all, he could have been selling somebody who actually was a slave. But neither of them alone is testifying to a whole thing, because neither of them alone says, is there significance to their testimony? The testimony only means something when you combine it. So Chizkiah, who says that if there's zomimim, they're not neharagim, what he really is saying, before you get to whether they're zomimim, is that they can't kill him. The reason they're not neharagim if they're zomimim is because their testimony won't get this guy killed, because the testimony won't combine, because each testimony doesn't stand on its own. Okay? So that's Chizkiah's point. So let's read that. Chizkiah damar k'Rabbi Akiva damar davar v'lo chatzi davar. You can't testify to a half thing. So their testimony is not accepted to get the guy killed. And since their testimony, each one by itself isn't sufficient because it isn't significant, therefore each one is not a testimony and they can't combine. So therefore if they're lying, they also won't get killed. No, you can testify to a half thing. This is accepted. We, the court, combine the testimony, and we would get the guy killed. And since we would get the guy killed by these two testimonies, if they're lying, we'll kill them. Okay? So that's the debate. So now the Gemara says like this: Umode Chizkiah be'edim ha'achronim shel ben Sora umore shehuz mushe neharagim. Mitosh shecholim lomar harishonim lahal koso bandu. Okay, so what happens by ben Sora umore? Let's say it's not this case. Let's say it's another case. We'll draw it here. So here, these witnesses say, right here, the kid is going ahead and he's misbehaving, and the parents are telling him, we don't want to see you doing this again, right? That Vayisruota, right? And then he goes ahead and he steals, okay? After he was warned by his parents, he steals some money, and he eats something. He eats the meat, whatever he's eating. Okay, and they saw that, and they say, we saw him go ahead and steal the money and eat the meat after he was warned by his parents. So the halacha is v'yisruota. Okay, he gets lashes. Okay, if they basically saw that. Okay, then he goes ahead and does it again. Okay, and then he repeats it, does it a second time. Okay, and then it's lo yishma lehem. Okay, and he goes ahead and he goes and he disobeys again, and then they see it. And then he gets stoned. Okay, yeah, my stone. Okay, I guess that'll be my lashes. Okay, anyway, all right. So, so in this case, even though we require a full davar, you can't say a partial thing. Here, Chizkiah would say these two testimonies do combine, because this testimony is sufficient in itself for a court-imposed punishment of lashes. And once this was accepted, then when they come along, they're building on what was already an accepted testimony in court, and they're going to get him killed. So if the first one was accepted and had some meaning, even though it wasn't enough to get him killed, you can build on it for the second one. So this case Chizkiah agrees to, but in this case, their testimony had no meaning by itself, so therefore it doesn't combine. Yes.
Just so the first witnesses in the lashes case,
yes,
become edim zomim. They're not going to get the.
So that's the question. If they're proven edim zomim, you would think you should only be mechayev the last people, not the early people. And we're going to say that in the end. We haven't gotten to that, but we're going to say that
because
in the end.
There's a similar issue over there, right?
Right.
Like,
if you say these combine, and they become edim zomim, who gets killed? Everybody, or just these guys?
Right.
So, right, it doesn't seem fair that these guys should do it, unless you can somehow prove that they were all in collusion and you treat them as one big group. So we're going to get to exactly that question, okay? So the Gemara says, since they could say Lau Kosobani, Vahani Yachrini, once these guys are getting him lashes, Vahani Yachrini Kuli Dover Kavi, and then these guys are doing something also by themselves. They're getting him lashes and they're getting him killed. Okay, so now the Gemara says like this. If that's true, wait, but then here too, Chizkiah should agree, because by saying that he stole him, right? Remember we said that this guy's transgressing. He's transgressing the prohibition of lo tigno. So what do you get when you transgress a prohibition? You get lashes. So why don't we say these guys get him lashes and these guys build on it and get him killed? Okay, it should be the same thing. Okay. It was coming to get him lashes. Okay, but maybe Chizkiah would say that you don't get lashes when you do this. Why would you not get lashes? Okay, so the reason you wouldn't get lashes is because since this is a sin that could bring about, when part 2 is done, it gets the guy killed, right? Because at the end of the day, conceptually, right, it's always an interesting question when there are 2 parts. What do we think is the real Aveira, right? Like here, we say the Aveira is, we don't say the Aveira is selling somebody you stole. We say the Aveira is Gonev Nefesh Me'achad B'nei Israel. It's kidnapping. Like the sale is sort of seen as like the end of it. So therefore, when you get, the guy will get killed over here, he's getting killed because of the Aveira of stealing. So that's a principle of something that is Nitan Lazaris Misas based in. This transgression eventually can get the guy killed. And since eventually he can get the guy killed, he can't get lashes for it. Okay, whereas opposed to here, right, we don't think that the reason he's getting killed here is because of this sin, right? It's not like the later thing is all, right? I mean, we don't know exactly why he's getting whatever, but we certainly focus more on the second act, like he's a repeat offender, etc. He's such a wayward child. Whereas here, we really focus on that first act. He was a Gones Nefesh who eventually sold it. So therefore, maybe the reason their testimony isn't accepted and can't give him lashes is because he's doing a sin that will eventually get him killed, that could eventually get him killed. And therefore, he can't get lashes. You got it? That's called Nitan Lazaris Misas Based. So let's read that.
Wait, if you're saying their testimony is not accepted at all?
It won't be accepted by itself because it does not have any effect of giving him lashes.
It ceases to be its own.
Now, if they say they saw him do both, it will be accepted.
Right.
But if all they saw him do is this, then that's not a testimony to give the guy lashes, because even if it's true he did it, he won't get lashes, because doing a sin that you could get you killed, you won't be able to give you lashes for such a sin.
So then what does that mean about the second set of witnesses? They can't come. That could never
Exactly. It could never work. It could according to Chizkiah, the witnesses would have to see him do both things. Okay? Yes.
And are we going to compare it to this one? Because now
Why?
They seem pretty similar.
Well, that's what I was trying to say. This is primarily a sin. Even when he sells him, it's primarily a sin of lo tignov. It's primarily a sin of kidnapping, okay? That eventually got sold. Here, it's not seen like this is the Aveira that gets him killed. I mean, so we're not going to make it explicit. Well, the problem is that he's a way. The problem is that he's a kid that is a wayward kid by defined of having done repeat offenses. But the primary sort of thing we're focusing on is how many times he's been warned and whatever, and now he's still doing it. So we focus on the last act. Whereas here we focus on the first act as defined by, provided he sells, that's conceptually the difference, okay? I'm not saying it's obvious, but that's the difference, okay? So the Gemara says like this. Now maybe, so the Gemara says, okay, but say the same thing, get him lashes. Now maybe you'll say, oh, he doesn't get lashes for the reason I just said, because eventually he's going to get killed. So the Gemara says, 1 minute. If you want to make the claim that according to Chizkiah he doesn't get lashes, by Itmar was taught. Okay, so they just testified that he was that he stole. Again, we're making it an Eidim Zomim case, but for simplicity, that's building on the scenario of what would be if they weren't Zomim and they actually testified. Chizkiah Reb Yochanan. It's the debate of Chizkiah and Reb Yochanan. Chad Amar Lokin, v'Chad Amar Ein Lokin. One says you get lashes, and one says you don't. Varminan, we said Tistayim to Chizkiah Damar Lokin. Chizkiah will say you do get lashes. Why? B'Damar Chizkiah Ein Neheragin. Since Chizkiah would say that it's a little ironic, or maybe not. Since Chizkiah says these two don't combine, right? Remember Chizkiah says these two don't combine, right?
Yeah.
So by saying that they don't combine, okay, therefore it's saying that we don't look at this as though it is this exact question of, do you look at this as all one big thing? You look at it as two separate things, right? There was stealing, and then there was selling. For stealing, you'd get lashes. For selling after the stealing, you would get whatever. You'd get put to death. Or do you look at it as one big thing? A stealing that ends in a selling, you get put to death. So we're going to say that according to Chizkiah, you are going to get lashes. How do we know you're going to get lashes? Because if Chizkiah saw this, now I'm losing my own train of thought. If Chizkiah, let's read it in the Gemara first. Tistayim, let us conclude the Chizkiah Amar Lokin, you get lashes. How do you know? Chizkiah ein heragim. Since Chizkiah will say that these two don't combine to get him killed, that's the point. Because they don't combine to get him killed, so this testimony, of course, we're doing this for the last 2 minutes. I have to hold the cup here. But anyway, this testimony here is not going to end in, right, that's the point. This testimony is not going to end in getting him killed. The only reason not to get lashes is because, as I said before, the reason not to get lashes is because we see this as a sin that could conclude in getting him killed. But Chizkiah says that these people can never get him killed because they won't combine with the next people. You sort of see that? Have I lost everybody by now? Right? Chizkiah says in this scenario, 2 say he stole and 2 say that he sold. The guy won't get killed because it's a half thing and they don't combine. So since it's a half thing and it will never combine with what comes next, it's like a little bit circular. Since it's half and it won't combine with what's next, we don't have to look at this as a capital crime because it's never going to combine, right, in this scenario. Since it's never going to combine, we can look at it separate. Oh, it's separate. We'll give him lashes. Of course, the irony is, well, then once you're giving him lashes, then it can combine because then they've actually done something that was that was meaningful in itself. It will become a little circular. Okay, but bracket it because that's the whole point, right? Once they get him lashes, we can accept it and move on. But anyway, that's what the Gemara is saying is, if Chizkiah says they can't combine, then we don't look at this as a capital crime, and therefore we should be able to give him lashes. But once we're giving him lashes, then we should be able to combine it. So how do you make this make sense? Okay, so let's read that. Tistayim, the Chizkiah, the Amar Lokin, you get lashes. Nirama Chizkiah ain't ragim, since they got killed. He Rabbi Yochanan, keeping them in ragim, since Rabbi Yochanan would say they would combine and they would get him killed. How do they lav shenit unless our misa spaced in? Then it would be a transgression that would lead to the death penalty. The whole lav shenit unless our misa spaced in ain't Lokin a love. Okay, so for Rabbi Yochanan, they can't get him lashes because they could combine. And once they could combine, he's on the path to getting killed. But for Chizkiah, that they can't combine and he can't get killed, he should get lashes. But then the irony is, once he's getting lashes, it should be able to combine, right? So, like, where do you stop? Okay. But no, that's what he said in the Ben Sorah case. If their testimony could be accepted to give him lashes, then it's not a half thing. Then it's a whole thing, and then the next testimony builds on it.
It's its own whole thing, but it's not. It doesn't.
Yeah, but then it allows the next testimony to build on it and get him killed.
But we said that they don't build. I think it actually makes sense because we said that in this case that it's not a building thing.
Yeah, you're saying the only basis on which we're giving him lashes is by accepting the idea that it can't combine with something else.
Right.
So we would sort of say both. We would say, yes, he gets lashes, but only if you buy into the principle that we're not going any further. Right.
Meaning
right.
2 people come and say, I saw him sell someone.
Right.
But there's nothing
to combine it with because this was only accepted on the principle that it was going to not combine with anything else.
Or if they weren't there at all. If you only had 2 witnesses who came and said, we saw him sell someone.
Right. Right. Well, that's certainly not. The question is, can it build? So let's see the Gemara. So the Gemara says, okay, so therefore, so if they can't give him lashes, they obviously won't get lashes, which is just the point that we're talking about aiding only. But the basic point is, according to Chizkiah, he should be able to give him lashes, because since it won't build to get him the death penalty. But once he's giving him lashes, says the Gemara, why don't we then allow the next ones to come along and build on it? So Jenna has her answer, but let's see what the Gemara says. Elamar of Papa. So now Rav Papa's going to make it simpler. Let's just try to get through this. I know we're a little over, but the so Papa says, sorry, Jen, against you, that everybody will agree that these guys can get him killed, and these guys will be chayv eidim zomim. Whether you're dealing with Ben Sorah or Mora, or whether you're dealing with this, okay, they're going to get this testimony is accepted because it does give him lashes. Okay, he will get lashes. You've done a sin of lo tignov. That's a sin that, maybe does not have to progress on, can conceptually be seen as distinct as what you're chayiv misa for. The same way this is seen as distinct, that stands by itself. Okay? We're going to give you lashes, and therefore our testimony is accepted, and therefore the next people will be able to come along and build on it and get you killed. Okay, so everybody agrees that that's the structure, that they can get him killed with these two sets of witnesses. And therefore, if those witnesses that say he sold are Eidim Zomim, they'll also be killed. Okay, yes, you can build on it in two stages. Key pligi, what's the debate? Be'ede Geneva, what you were saying, Jenna. So it's not like we said it all before. Everybody agrees. First set of witnesses is accepted. Second set of witnesses is also accepted. The guy will get killed. It's only an Eid Zomim question. And the question is, can you get the first set of witnesses chayiv for Eidim Zomim as well? Okay, so it's a very different type of a question. You can't get the first set of witnesses killed. Each one stands by itself, which, by the way, Tosfos says is consistent with the idea that he says you give them lashes. That conceptually, we don't see this as one big sin of Geneva. Conceptually, we see this as two distinct sins. So therefore, this was a completely separate court case, which let us give lashes. And therefore, they're the ones that are the Eidim Zomim for Misa. Okay? Rabbi Yochanan Amri Ner Ragim. No, they are killed. We view this as one big, we don't give lashes, because all of this is one big sin leading to the death penalty. It's not two separate sins. It's one big sin leading to the death penalty. And since it's all one big court case and one big sin that has multiple parts that we have to prove, but ultimately it's all one big court case, right? Therefore, these guys are also Eidim Zomim and they will also get killed. Okay? Is that clear? So it's a very nice debate. If you view it as two things, you give him lashes, because this is not a death penalty sin, but these guys then don't get killed. If you view it as one thing, you don't give him lashes because it's a death penalty sin, but then they're all part of the same capital court case, and the first guys will get killed as well. Okay? Okay, you know what? So we'll just end here. Okay? I would like to finish, but we're already quite over. So, what?
That's part of the same thought.
I know. You want to? All right, fine. Let's just give me 3 more minutes. We're going to finish this baby up. Okay, so it says like this. Rabbi Yochanan, we really should do this. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan, now Rabbi Yochanan will agree. Where were we? I lost my place. Rabbi Yochanan be'edim harishonim shall ben saramor shuzmu she'ein eragim. But Rabbi Yochanan would agree. Here he says it's all one big court case. And therefore you don't get lashes here, and they're all Eidim Zomim. But here he agrees they're two distinct acts, okay? And because they're two distinct acts, these guys do give him lashes, and these guys would not get the death penalty because they are two distinct by the Eidim Zomim. Amar Rabbi. So let's just read Rabbi since I got you going with me this long. He wrapped the whole thing up. Hakol modim ben Soramora. Everybody will agree. Chizkiya and Rabbi Yochanan. There are cases that nobody gets killed. Hakol modim ben Soramora. Everybody will be a ben Soramora that they both get killed. Machlokas ben Soramora, and they debate ben Soramora. What does it mean? Hakol modim ben Soramora be'edim harishonim. The first ones. Everybody agrees that this is a distinct case. It's not part of this, and therefore lashes are administered, and these people cannot be part of the death penalty. Okay, they're there just to give lashes. It's not all one big sin, and therefore, if they're proven Zomim, they don't get the death penalty. Everybody agrees that in Ben Soramor, the second ones are only there to get killed. So if they're lying, they will be killed. The second ones are building on the first. The first was totally accepted by itself, and the second ones are getting him killed. But they would debate Ben Soramor in the case of which is the case that they would debate. Let's say 2 witnesses said he stole the money and 2 witnesses said he ate it. So that's a case of chatzi davar. Right? Because stealing by itself is not enough unless it's combined with the eating. So that's the classic debate of davar v'lo chatzi davar, that each one is only a partial testimony. Amar Ravasi, said Ravasi, Eidim mechira b'nefesh shehusmu ein neharagim. Mitoshi cholim lomar avdi macharti. If you were just testifying on this without these witnesses and they were lying, they're not killed. Because maybe he didn't even do a sin. Maybe he was selling somebody who actually was a slave. So that's pretty obvious. Not only are they not killed, but their testimony is meaningless anyway. So the Gemara says, Amar of Yosef, Kiman az lahashmait Ravasik Rabbi Akiva. The Amar davar v'lo chatzi davar. That's filling Rabbi Akiva, because he says when you testify to this, you're only testifying to a half thing. So Amalei Abaye, what do you mean? You think according to the rabbis they would be killed? Hamitoch Kamar. According to the rabbis, they also wouldn't be killed. They only said they saw him sold. They didn't even say they saw a capital crime being committed. So of course they can't be killed. It's not about a davar or chatzi davar issue. It's not limited to Rabbi Akiva. Even if you could testify in a half thing, that's only an issue if the other half eventually got testified. But if all you testified to was this half, okay, so then you would be, so then you didn't say anything meaningful. So if all you testified to was this half, of course these guys wouldn't get killed. They haven't even testified that he did a crime. Is that clear, right? Okay. Ihachi says the Gemara Maila Memra. So then that's patently obvious. What else are you, right? No, look. No, here's the case. First they came to go and they said, we saw him sell this kid. Okay, so on the face of it, they said nothing. So what do they testify to? A sale of a slave? Okay, but then these witnesses showed up and said, we saw him steal the kid. So now in hindsight, can we say, so we'll combine the two, and he's chayav misa. Oh, and now it turns out you're lying. Now we'll get you to be chayav misa. Can these guys become edim zomanim in hindsight? Because after these guys came later, we now see that they were getting him killed, and they'll be chayav misa.
They didn't mean to get him killed.
Well, that's going to be the question. The answer should be, how the heck do we know that they were trying to do that? So let's take a look. Which is what you're saying, David. Okay, but if these guys came later, these guys could plead complete innocence. Of course they can't get killed. No, they were sort of signaling to one another. These guys came and they said, like they were signaling to these guys. So Mao Detema, I might think Remiza Milsahi, that's halachically significant, and they were seen signaling that shows that they were all in cahoots, and now that they're shown lying, we can get them killed. Kamash Malandra Remiza Lav Klumhi, that it's not significant. So that's interesting. If you're really smart, you'll switch the order. You'll go first, then you'll have them come. If you succeed, the court will combine the two and get the guy killed. And if you don't succeed, then you can always just claim innocence and you'll get off, even if you're seen signaling the other witnesses. Okay, we did that a little quickly, but I think we get the idea. So thank you for sticking with it, and we will pick up with the next Mishnah tomorrow. All right.